Kenya currently, uh, in Kenya currently, the portion that has been given to education, the share out of the total budget, we have 4.2 trillion budget in the year 2025-2026. Out of that 4.2 trillion, 701 billion Kenya shillings is a share given to education. The challenge that we are having is, how is that fund being utilized? Does it reach the target as expected, or does it disappear in the middle here? We have had cases based on the Auditor General report. For example, the report of 2024. That was a special report that was trying to give us an indication of how part of this money, the huge portion that is allocated to education, how it is being used. You discover that part of that money does not actually reach the intended schools, because some of the schools that received it do not exist. That's why they are called ghost schools. More than 33 ghost schools received millions of shillings. Schools don't exist. Definitely then the students are not there, but they receive it anyway. Part of what the Treasury boss told us is that the allocation given to high school, I'm giving that as example, the allocation given to high school of 22,400 shillings, between 10,000 and 15,000 marks reaches that student. So we ask, where does the rest go? And that is where accountability is required more. So some of these things which I'm explaining lead to non-completion of school, because children are always sent home to go and collect money. And when they are sent home, some get problems or challenges when they get back home. So that is something that we require to address. The affordable technical and vocational training and higher education, this is very important. And indeed, this is one aspect that we have to deal with. The fifth thing that we must address holistically is the elimination of all forms of discrimination in education and economic opportunities. These discriminations include the areas I was talking about, which do not have public schools, do not even have any form of schools. Some areas are permanently having turmoil, the insecurity. Thank God, at least there are parts of the North Rift which used to have a lot of insecurity, and somehow some of those are being addressed. The safety situations, like what we witnessed in Endarasha, Nyeri, where 21 young boys perished because of non-compliance with the safety standards. Those are the things that we need to address. But when we address those, then we'll be able to make education accessible and make every child to be in school and to learn, and ensure that all our youth get to the TVET and universities supported and in a manner that is very affordable, that they do not starve there, that they get quality teaching because they are able even to buy books, they are able to feed themselves, they are able to get accommodation that is proper for the status of learning that they are going through. Thank you very much for having given me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Boaz. Much appreciated. Let's show some love to Boaz. Thank you for that wonderful presentation, but also for giving us the statistics. You have set the problem clear for us and also paved the way for the subsequent speakers. And so I'd like to take this opportunity. Let me just also mention that Boaz is also in the pioneering class of Master of Education Leadership Policy studies at Daystar University. And actually will be defending his final thesis in a few weeks. So let's also hold him in prayers. Our next speaker, again, is our very own colleague of BOAS, Ms. Florence Machio. Florence Machio is the Regional Technical Advisor, Research and Communication, Data2X UN Foundation, and also a pioneering student of the first cohort that is taking Master of Education, Leadership and Policy Studies at Daystar. Welcome, Florence. The floor is yours, 15 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Munyao. I will disappoint those who are expecting a presentation because I was actually told to speak about integrating leadership and policy studies in my work. And so, as you heard from the title of my position, I'm in a technical advisory role. And I just want to say that even with that, I am seconded in the office of the Executive Office of the President. And I am in that office, I am supposed to deal with matters data research around women's rights, because I'm in the office of the Women's Rights Advisor to the President. So given that position and that weight on my shoulders, in 2023, when I joined the office of the Women's Rights Advisor and I was seconded there, I was meant to offer technical support. But that same year, somebody convinced me, I think it's Dr. Ayuya, that this Master Education and Leadership Policy Studies is also relevant to someone like me, because I looked at the education part of it and I thought, I'm not in the education sector, so clearly I don't need this. I need something else. But I knew what I needed also was the leadership and policy part of it. And probably that's why, I have, God has accorded me this privilege to share my navigation of this class, and also pairing it up with the work I am doing in advisory role. Maybe just to also indicate the fact that my work also involves advocacy. My work involves in making a case for matters women's rights and children in that particular office, and making a case, navigating the political space is not easy. And so I want, if anybody is here and that they want to join this particular course, emotional intelligence is one of the lessons that we learn. And I think, and after attending this course, I am seeing how that is helping me navigate the political scene and be able not to emotionally present my case, but understand the people that I'm dealing with and be able to present the case for women and girls in a manner that can be understood, but also in a manner that you carry people along. Another thing that I got from this course, and I continue utilizing, is the strong analytical component that comes with this class. I remember one of the every conversation that we started, especially with Prof and even the other lecturers, was a lot in terms of analysis. And we were not just discussing things at face value. We have to ask ourselves, why do we do what we do in the positions we are in? Do we have integrity? Are we doing what God wants us to do in the places where God has placed us? So a lot of strong analytical skills you will build within this class. You will develop resilience to navigate complex challenges, which is what I have developed, and I'm going to give you a few examples. I have developed strategic thinking, and because in the class for research, and as we were taught by Prof, it's a lot of inquiring and looking at the pain points. And when it comes to policy, you are looking at, yes, we have a good policy, but is it working? Is it being implemented? What are the gaps? And so my job entails looking at policy gaps that exist and recommending what needs to be done. But even as you look at the policy gaps that exist, you have to have evidence to show why we need to change and what we need to change to. And I can also give the example of the fact that when I joined the course, I have now held 2 Women in Data Summits, one last year, which was Kenya only, included county governments and everyone, just to carry on that thing of where are the women in data, because we kept on analyzing policies, but people are saying, no, but where is the evidence? And so I took leadership in terms of creating the Women in Data Summit, which was embraced by the office and a lot of county governments, inquiring, even as we put money for development, what is informing our putting money in this particular development? What is informing us building a road? And one conversation I had in that summit, or we had in that summit, included a county government realizing that actually the data in terms of the voices of the women on the ground in a particular area wanted, actually, they didn't want a road. They wanted street lights, because they walk down there every day when they're going to the market. But on the other hand, the men wanted the road because they have the cars to drive on the road. What does this mean? In terms of leadership, it is important to check the most vulnerable and make sure that the most vulnerable are carried along. And I am quite pleased that this particular county ended up saving a lot of money, investing in lighting the road, investing in ensuring the security for women as they go to the market, instead of building a road, which in the end would not even have been used because it was not a busy road. So those are some of the insights that you get, or rather that I got, that I'm utilizing in the place where I work. So again, when it comes to policy, there's a lot of internal advocacy you have to do in different spaces. And I got into this course when Kenya had done the Time Use Survey. And the Time Use Survey had been done in 2021, but we were in 2023 and it had not been released. And so immediately one of the key things we did is ask, why do we have a study that has not been released? What is the problem? And we pushed for it to be released. And the Time Use Survey study has shown us that care work, women spend more than 4 to 5 hours on matters care work. In some counties, they spend 7 hours, whether they're fetching water, they're, walking, taking their children to school, making meals for their children, literally work that as a country we export in the Middle East. So we export care work in the Middle East. But internally in this country, do we recognize care work? Yet an office had done beautiful data, Time Use Survey, and they were, well, not sitting on it, but it was there. Just the way, some universities, people will do research and they'll sit on the shelf. But this was a study that, for me, pricked my conscience, because in Africa, we look at women and we know that they're supposed to do care work anyway. A woman is supposed to wash clothes. A woman is supposed to take care of the children. A woman, even in the Bible, we say a woman is a helper. And so with that helper mentality, we look at women and assume the work that they do does not contribute to the economy of this country. Then we went and looked at the Women's Charter. The Women's Charter that the President, His Excellency the President, signed before the election quotes, one of the pillars talks about care work. And so I linked those two together and moved to request that these results are released. These results, I want to say right now, Kenya is now about to release a care policy. But that's not the end, because Professor Ayiro has taught us to keep on inquiring. So what, the policy will be there and it will be launched. Now we are moving to having a discussion with Treasury to quantify care work, to find a formula that quantifies care work. Why is this important? If we as a country are exporting care work, then why are we not recognizing it, quantifying it, monifying it, and redistributing it, so that when it comes to care work, whether it's taking care of children and everybody else, then it is something that all of us can take part in. Now, when we start quantifying it and economizing it, then it becomes very lucrative to any gender. Because there's a study that was done in 2021, Beyond the Care Work, that looked at women who provide, those, in Swahili we called, it's like a daycare, but it's not formal daycare. And these women are providing care work. And somebody gives 50 bob, take care of my child, I am going to work, I will come back. And these women, we've realized with the results that the Time Use Survey has shown us, and Kenya being a pioneer within the Sub-Saharan Africa to do the Time Use Survey, it has shown us that care work can improve women economic empowerment. So what does that mean? We now need to put systems in place. We now need to reduce the licenses. We can't charge care work the way somebody who is having a kiosk can be charged. Again, the policy on care work is now opening up another Pandora box, which is not a bad Pandora box, but it goes back to, with every policy you are inquiring, why this, what is the gap, what is the data telling us, and how can we improve this policy for the benefit, in my case, of women and girls, because that is the office that I work in. What else are we seeing? If the Treasury will come up with a formula, right now there are two formulas. It will come up with a formula to quantify care work now that we have a study. It means then, if women face a situation where there is a divorce case and all that, you will not be told that you are just a sit-at-home mother, but you are doing care work and the government has already quantified it. And just because you do not have, a formal job does not mean you're not contributing to the economy. Look at a woman who gives birth to a child with disability. What services does the government have to ensure that this child is taken care of? And if those services are not there, it ends up being the burden of the woman. You will find a woman maybe gets divorced, you'll find everybody ostracizes her, but the care for that child remains hers. Yet, have you seen county governments put in budgetary allocation to take care of children living with disability? Or even the women who are old, or the women and men who are old. Look at the scenario we have right now. We are all moving into the cities. So we have, this package for old, for the older generation. But have you inquired to find out, okay, if all your children are living in the urban areas and you are not in the urban area, you're in the rural area, who takes care of the old people? Who is supposed to do it? Ideally, it is government. What policy is there to cover these people, and what mechanisms and structures have been put in place? So one of the things I have learned, and especially in terms of the work that I do, is not to look at any policy at face value. We would be very happy to tick boxes and say we have a policy in this, we have a policy in this, and we have a policy in the other. But we have to ask ourselves, if we are leadership students, what more is missing, and keep on inquiring over and over again. This year, we've had the Regional Women in Data Summit, and I'm just in Naivasha, we've concluded today. And this summit was looking at resilience for better data. And when we say better data, let me just give a simple example. When we build markets, do you know that if you go to Mudurwa Market, that is the only market that has a proper toilet? If you go to Uasin Gishu Market, remember most women are the ones who use markets. Uasin Gishu Market, Makueni Market. Those are the markets that have proper toilets and sanitation for women to use. In the other markets, you will find the male traders really don't have the challenge of where to go to the bathroom. Women, we have multiple challenges, and the women in the room will agree with me. If a woman is in her menses, who thinks about that when they're building a market? Who thinks about that when they're saying, oh, I'll build markets for women? All right, beyond that, have you thought about a daycare center? Because women, there's a law that says women cannot, or rather, you cannot put a child in a place like that. So women end up putting their children in boxes, hanging them on their back while they're working in the market. who thinks about, did this policy make sense to the people it's supposed to serve? And so what I have learned is to continue interrogating, inquiring, asking myself, the end user, and in this summit, we brought grassroots women from across the region to look at policy, to look at the data and see, did this data really represent the issues that I face? And so if you look at construction sites, for example, we are doing affordable housing. If you go to a construction site, has anybody thought about the women who come to bring food, the plumbers, the small, the work that the most of the people who do in construction that are female, there are a lot of plumbers that are female. But when you go to a construction site, you find one toilet, which everybody is supposed to use, which is a requirement when you're constructing. But nobody thought that, hey, wait a minute, there could actually be a woman in this particular place doing construction work anyway. So this, if I am a leadership student and I am inquiring around policy, I have to go deeper than the face value to check, what does this really mean? And I have to look, and if I'm a student of research, I have to check the nuances within any particular data set and see, has it really spoken beyond sex segregated, data? What more do I need to check to be able to inform really that this policy is speaking to the end users or to the most vulnerable, as I like to put it? Advocacy, which is part of the job that I do, requires data all the time, requires thinking through. You'll be told there's no money to do data, but what are the other innovations that we can utilize? Geospatial data, what else can we use? What are the AI tools we can use? How do we track women's lived experiences to reduce maternal health, for example, in our facilities, or to even inquire whether SHA is working or it's not working, whether it's speaking to the people, to the end users. So these inquiries are things that have been deposited in us as leaders, as students of leadership and policy, that it is not enough to have a policy. It is important to interrogate further. It is important to link it with data, and it is important to keep on inquiring further. You cannot say you have reached the end when, if you test the policy, it is still not making sense. I think I'll stop there, Dr. Munyao, and because then we'll give time for questions. But I hope I have spoken to what you asked me to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Florence. Let's give some love to Florence in the pioneering of Master of Education Leadership and Policy, now candidate, about also to defend her final best. There you see our guests. Really, you don't need to be a teacher to take our Master of Education Leadership Policy Studies. Here is a policy worker in the field, talking about big data, policy on care economy, and all this needs to be seated from a point of research, real research. And you've seen how she's handled that conversation between data issues and the policy on care economy and gender issues. That is really great. I really appreciate you. Please keep your questions, members who are joining, keep your questions. We'll have a moment at the end to respond to all the questions, but you can post questions or comments on the chat segment. And also there's a survey that is being shared on the chat segment. Please feel free to fill that survey. Mishek is going to throw it momentarily so that you can participate as you enjoy the presentations. Next up is Dr. George Kegode. Dr. George Kegode is one of professors, faculty members teaching the Master of Education Leadership program at Daystar University, but he is a member of the Department of Educational Foundations at Moi University. And I would like to take this opportunity to humbly welcome Dr. Kegode. Please take the floor, is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Munyao. Now, as I hope I can be heard.
Yes.
Just a moment, I load these few slides, please. Okay. I hope, Dr. Munya, I hope my slide can be seen.
Very clearly.
Thank you so much. So I've been asked to share some thoughts about how to navigate the future of education in Kenya. And as we think about navigating the future of education in Kenya, we think also about navigating the same in very many other African countries. And part of what we learn in this program on Master of Education in Leadership and Policy Studies is to be able to question ourselves about the future of education. Now, to understand the challenges of education, in our country and in very many other African countries, perhaps is to look at how education dynamics have moved since independence in very many African states. Looking at the Kenyan model, for example, education in Kenya, education policy and practices in Kenya, up to now, in independence Kenya, have actually gone through about 3 moments. I call them 3 moments. These 3 moments can help us actually to understand the education of the individual, the struggle to educate the individual. The first moment of education policy and practice in this country is the one that stretches from the independence time, beginning with the Ominde Commission of 1964. Very many who are in the education sector would understand this, and perhaps ending in the effects of the Gashati Commission of 1976. These historical moments are very important to us because they help us to understand why we do things the way we do them and where we are going to. Now, that moment, the first education moment, was the one that very much emphasized on the production of the human resource. Remember, the Europeans, the colonialists are living, and the idea is produce as many people as possible to fill up the positions. The second moment, and I'll be saying something about each of these moments in a moment, is what we call the 844 education policy moment, which actually begins after Gashati Commission has ended, and we begin with the Mackay Commission of 1984-85. So we begin there. We talk about the 844 education policy, which now emphasizes on a movement from the independence education policy, which was very much the production of manpower, and it now moves on to the element of self-reliance, education for self-reliance. And then the third moment begins somewhere in 1999, when the Davy Koech-led commission starts questioning whether we are succeeding, whether we are doing what we intended to do in the 844 education system. Remember this, the so-called Ticket Commission of Davy Koech 1999, very much questioned how we were going wrong. So this moment, the third moment, is signaled actually when the Douglas Odhiambo Task Force comes in 2012 and is assisted by session paper number 14 of 2012 by beginning the dialectics between 844 and the circumstances of life experiences that finally produce what we call the competence-based education approach. So that's really a general way of looking at this. Now, besides this, besides talking about this, I've mentioned in summary what the Ominde report of 1964 looked at. It's very important to understand this. Here, 4 elements were in focus. Education should achieve national unity and economic development. Second, social equality. Third, the production of high-level manpower. and the provision and access of education was emphasized. Take children to school. That was really Ominde for us. The second moment, which I mentioned, actually, focuses, as I said, on manpower, production, and the social demand model. This is very much the World Bank model that was out by then. So the focus here that will produce the 844 education policy framework was an emphasis on knowledge and skills to bring about self-reliance, which, if you like, can be compared to the third education goal in Kenya, which is education for self-reliance and development. So you see that moment moving on with an emphasis of transforming the individual learner into a self-propelling person with independent thinking and capable of self-direction, and not just dependent on the independence policy, whereby we were to produce people whom the government will give, as it were, jobs. This is why the 844 comes in with an emphasis on vocationalizing education, especially in the context where the learner lives. Hence, you find the 844 education system or policy emphasizing that we need to seek to prepare job creators than job seekers. Remember, here, the independence education policy was supposed to prepare people who will go outside there, they seek for jobs, and jobs are there. But the 844 education policy is coming in to say, no. Look around here. We no longer have these jobs to give to people. Let us focus on creating, or rather producing job creators than producing job seekers. We need to interrogate this and find out whether we have departed from that or we are still at that kind of thinking. And then came the third education policy moment in Kenya, which is marked out by an evolution of the dialectics between the challenges that 844 education policy faced and the experiential challenges that are there. So by this time, ushering in the competence-based learning, which actually we describe as the third moment, we focus on two things, really. As told you, this began in 1999 by the Davy Koech Commission, which produced the report we popularly refer to as TICKET. And that report was highly critical of what was happening in the 844, that we had become teacher-centered, we had become really content-centered and forgotten the learner. This was even emphasized more by session paper number 1 of 2005. Remember, this is the session paper that has given a blueprint of transforming, education activities, education issues in this country. Like, for example, we are moving into that moment whereby the lowest qualified teacher in the country, whether it be at ECD or whatever, should actually be a diploma holder. This session paper number 1 is the one that actually pronounced that kind of approach. And then, besides these two concepts here, these two documents, we had the Kenya Vision 2030, whose focus was to industrialize the country, really move it to a middle level kind of society by 2030. So the education system, the education policy was actually intended to transform education so that education becomes a vessel for realizing that. I've occasionally, asked my students in class, and I put the idea before this audience. The word is Kenya Vision 2030. We are now more or less 5 years or so, or 4 years or so away from 2030. If we are not careful about the steps we are taking, both in education policy and practice, I want to put it to ourselves here. Behold, it shall come to pass that it shall be 31st of December 2029. Tomorrow shall be 1st of January 2030. And the Kenya Vision 2030 will only be but a vision. We will see it as a vision, meaning we have to do something and practically do something that will force, or rather will compel, education to produce new results. So this shift, this something is contemplated in the shift towards the competence-based, learning, which is actually putting a blueprint in the Douglas Odhiambo Task Force of 2012 and repeated, transformed into law. We've heard sometimes people say there is no legal basis for competence-based learning. No, there is. Session of paper number 14 of 2012, which actually repeats verbatimly what Douglas Odhiambo had said, actually offers us the legal backing. What we may be lacking is the will to implement, and I'll be talking about this. So I don't want to go into this in the interest of time, but we have got some materials to this. When you come, some of you come to take this program at Daystar, we should be able to go through some of these things and discuss them in detail. Now, some of the key emerging issues within the competence-based learning, which we must actually be embracing, is one, to think about the changing teacher roles. The changing teacher roles. What does the teacher become? And coupled with these changing teacher roles, I heard that really we have several teachers in this forum, we have principals in this forum. We've also to think about the professional development of our teaching. And behind these arguments, especially for the principals here present, heads of departments in schools here present, we need what we call leadership, effective leadership. And it is one of the things which is at the center of this master's program. We need really leadership. So this big word, leadership, will be translated into our schools, into our education institutions in various ways. For example, we'll be talking about institutional leadership, how to lead those institutions so that they can become centers of realizing these competencies. We'll be talking about instructional leadership. We need school principals, we need heads of departments that can actually carry up their teaching materials, their lesson plan, their schemes of work, go to class. Here at Daystar, you come to meet a CEO who will be with you in class. Yet we move to schools and we find heads of schools that are too busy to go to class, too busy to attend, the so-called, what I would call refresher courses. You see, however much many teachers within our schools go for those retooling seminars, it is until heads of schools, heads of departments embrace those retooling programs that actually that retooling will take effect within our schools. That is why I would like to emphasize we need, for example, what we want to call the CPDs, the continuous professional development. It cannot just be CPD for classroom teachers. It must be CPDs also for school leadership. These CPDs can stretch into digital pedagogies, formative assessment, competence mapping, and so forth. We need to strengthen the induction and mentoring of communities, learning communities within our schools and across counties and regions. And then for those reflecting on the Kenyan model, we actually need to align the Teacher Service Commission licensing, the curriculum guidance from KICD and so forth, so that all this can actually coalesce together into coherent instructional approaches. Besides this, we need to ask ourselves, at the heart of this competence learning, competence-based learning, it is not so much the curriculum designs, the way they are written and so forth. It is much more of how we do it. We are not going to change and course that vision, Kenya Vision 2030, by simply what learners learn, but perhaps majorly by how learners learn. Learners are going to change this country if we change the way they learn, but not so much how they learn. Therefore, this brings us to the concept of the essence of pedagogical orientation or theory. We are not talking about here just strategies and the practices in classrooms. We are not talking about how we will question, how we will demonstrate, whatever, just why we demonstrate. But we are actually talking about, the thinking, the thinking that goes around the how we do things. You see, how, for example, does a classroom teacher within a class view the learner? Do we view the learner as somebody we want to fill in, an empty container we want to fill in? That is part of building a working pedagogical theory. You see, we are talking here about a thinking from which proceeds pedagogical practices. How do you view a school? When you ask learners during holidays that we have tuition, pay a few money, how do you see that tuition? You see it as a money minting. These are the concepts that must change in the way we look at things. Therefore, pedagogical theories or orientation are those orientations that reveal the intrinsic intentions of the pedagogical practices we put in place. Those that reveal why we do the way we do. So here we say, the practice, what we do in the classroom in the school, is what we often witness empirically in the learning environments, while the theoretical orientation of pedagogy is the unseen thinking around the elements of education, that which explains and informs what teachers often do. But how bad will it be if actually the teacher's pedagogical orientation is still fixated in the concept of going to class to tell them, yet the competence-based learning is actually marked out by actually something different. Therefore, a practice will actually emerge from our orientations. A rich pedagogical practice can never be the result of the teacher's mere in-depth pedagogical knowledge. No, it will emerge from the combination of the teacher's pedagogical knowledge, which is deeply rooted in the professional beliefs and convictions of that teacher, which actually is accompanied with a knowledge of the intended educational outcome, what you want the learner to become. And finally, it will be punctuated by our perceptions as educators. This is why, dear friends, colleagues attending this webinar, we are trying to say it is not in the many amounts of sessions that teachers will attend, the retooling sessions, but it is that attempt to reorder how our teachers view schooling, how they view learners, and they view what they want actually to achieve in them. Therefore, at the heart of these new dynamics will lie the idea of dialogue, trying to change the teaching practices in schools and thinking so that they can unleash what a philosopher of education by the name Paulo Freire called the critical pedagogy, which is a movement from just the banking model of education to liberating the learner. Second, we'll think about looking at education. This is now the orientation, looking at education, not just as a preparation for life, but indeed looking at education as life itself, so that we can lead our learners to embrace life as they experience it, but not teach learners in a manner to say, when you become an adult. That's why it's not good when, for example, we teach learners in primary schools, we tell them that when you reach secondary school or senior school, you will learn this. No, teach a learner in the moment that he's in. Thirdly, we will need very rich learner-centered pedagogical paradigm shifts, so that we no longer just look at pedagogy, or rather going to class, as a moment of actually, reaching the end of the curriculum design. If you look at, for example, in our schools, in many of our schools, you find that when we talk about tuition sessions, the concept is, can we finish the syllabus? Can we clear up the curriculum design by this time? No. This is why sometimes I've told students, it is possible that the teacher can actually complete the syllabus and the learners fail to complete the syllabus. So as you say, we have completed the entire syllabus. As an educator, we ask ourselves, have our learners also completed the syllabus? Then we need to change again the way we view learning in our classroom, whereby we begin to look at the teacher as an instrumental cause of learning, and they put the learner at the center of learning as actually the principal cause of the learning that goes around within him. Now, I reflect briefly on future directions of the competencies we need to succeed. Our learners need to succeed in the 21st century. Look at the cognitive domain, for example. People who will succeed in this 21st century will be people who will have achieved 3 critical competencies: the competency of critical thinking, the competency of creativity, and the competency of problem solving. Without this, we would actually just end up producing robots which cannot be able to operate without our agency on them. So think about it. When we deal with our learners in classroom, to what extent do we plant these cognitive competencies in them? In the digital domain, we need digital literacy and computational skills. Now, digital literacy is not a mere issue of touching computer and touching keys here. In fact, for me, I would say part of digital literacy would be, can we produce people who will actually be able to control the digital world? Interpersonal skills, we need people who will have rich competency in communication, collaboration, and empathy. It is no doubt that if you move around and you meet the young people, many young people, you talk to them, you ask a question, and they tell you they have an answer, but they don't know how to say it. We need communicators. This 21st century world replaces competition with the collaboration. We need more of people who can collaborate than who can compete. People who are empathetic, as school leaders, teachers in schools, leaders in companies. A school can succeed, a company cannot succeed without a measure of empathy. Leadership must benefit essentially from the element of empathy. Then, of course, on the interpersonal part, inside the person, we need skills of adaptation, skills of resilience, and skills of self-management. We need to produce people who can persevere, who have resilience, who can adopt, and who can actually manage the self. Of course, on the entrepreneurial level, we need people who are endowed with skills of innovation, initiative, and financial literacy. At the global level, we need actually people who will be empowered with ethical reasoning, sustainability awareness of the world and the society they live in. Now, to produce these competencies, teachers must work in classrooms, must be empowered to be able to work in classroom. Therefore, we reflect finally on the challenges that we meet before us. We have a challenge of school and institutional leadership capacity. The need to ensure that we have heads of institutions who can actually drive innovation and lead proper resource use. We talk about corruption everywhere in institutions and so forth. This is what we're talking about. We also have a challenge in teacher readiness to take up this path. We need actually teachers who are adequately trained. We need teachers who actually are empowered with enough support materials, and the teachers who actually are having manageable workloads within institutions. Therefore, we ask ourselves, to what extent are our teachers in schools empowered to be able to drive the competency agenda forward? And then we also have a challenge of parental and community engagement. You've heard parents ask, why are we being demanded to do ABCD? Yet, this engagement that will lead into the various pathway counseling and support for experiential projects is quite fundamental. Everybody must be involved. We have a challenge on how to monitor and carry out evaluation. How do we establish, feedback loops between classrooms, feedback loops between county leadership, feedback loops with the national policy makers and so forth. We're talking about, for example, the elements of the formative evaluation happening in schools. How do we build up these loops? These are some of the things we summon you to Daystar to learn about. Then we're thinking about a challenge in the public-private partnership, the need to cooperate and co-create digital content. We're talking about STEM labs and career exploration hubs and so forth. This is a challenge to us. And then finally, we talk about the need for targeted interventions for equity. Think about what Florence Macho talked about and even Waruko talked about in the beginning. How do we share scholarships in this country? What about school feeding programs, assistive devices, and the gender responsive, strategies within the education sector? These are things we actually require, sorry for that. These are actually things we require. Just a moment. Just a moment. So these are some of the things we actually require if we've got to succeed. Therefore, I invite you, as you come to Daystar, to think about some of these things as you talk to one and talk to two. Think about these things that must punctuate our education system, education policy, so that we can be able to move into the future. I thank you, Chair.
Wow. Let's please show some appreciation. Thank you, Dr. George Kegode. Always at your best in what you do. Really, really appreciate your presentation. You've taken us through a sneak peek view of the education sector in Kenya. You've really nailed it, giving us the 3 seasons of the historical overviews of the journey of education policy in Kenya, and really landed us at hitting the very heart of the 21st century learner. Guests who are joining this webinar, This is the kind of finesse with which we present smart instructional leaders in your classrooms. And, joining this program, you are going to meet Dr. George Kagode and more like him that will just take you through the journey of tooling and retooling you. I like one of the comments that have been made on the chat segment by Enos Barasa says, wow, powerful presentation by Dr. George Kagode. I wish the Ministry of Education engaged you in retooling the teachers. The quality of any education system is as good as the quality of its teachers. Global Campaign for Education 2012. Great, great. Thank you. Thank you. Just so you can see on your screens, the Master of Education Leadership Policy Studies is coming to you at a discount of 40% on tuition fee. Therefore, please register now. And there's a form going on the chat segment. Please click on it, have a look at it, fill it. Whether you're interested in this program or not, just fill it and leave us with some information that we can make use of to follow up with you. Thank you very much. So thank you, Dr. Kagode. The Lord bless you. Up next now is, just one second, is Professor Dr. Moni Wekesa. Professor Dr. Moni Wekesa is the founding dean of the School of Law at Daystar University, and now is the founding dean of School of Education at Daystar University, and is coming to us on the topic of leading with clarity, education policy and law. And I'll kindly request Professor Wekesa to, after his presentation, introduce the Vice Chancellor, who is on this call, to also make his submissions. So immediately after Prof, then you will introduce the VC who is in this congregation. Thank you, Daktari. Karibu, Prof.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Munyao. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can, very clearly.
Yeah, thank you. Now, Dr. Dina Keino knows me only as a lawyer. So for the avoidance of doubt for members who may be of like mind, let me start by saying that I am a trained teacher, proudly holding a first-class honors degree from the University of Nairobi in education. I have taught at Alliance High School, Kaimos Teachers College, Kenyatta University, University of Botswana, University of Namibia, Catholic University, Mount Kenya, and now Daystar University. In some of those institutions, I was in the education sector. Starting from Catholic University, I was teaching law. That is Catholic, Mount Kenya, and Daystar. And at the moment, I'm privileged to serve as the founding dean of education. My subtopic this evening is leading with clarity, educational law and policy. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to start by associating myself fully with the previous presentations. Mr. Oruku, who is both a lawyer and an educationist, did point out a lot of the law and also a lot of the policies that we have had in this country. Ms. Macho did also touch on a number of policies, and Dr. Kagode took us through a historical tour of how we are making the policies. And now mine is to try and weave them together to see whether we have any clarity in terms of the policies and the laws that we have in education in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give credit where credit is due. This country did very well with the Ominde Commission report of 1964. The Ominde Commission report of 1964 was made at a time against the backdrop of independence. Colonialists had occupied all the spaces, all the jobs in the teaching sector, in the civil service, in everywhere. And now, after the Mau Mau and independence, they were scared of how a Black person would rule over them. and they just decided to leave. So there were very many gaps. There are very many jobs that needed to be filled. But then again, based on their previous policies, they had not really allowed many Africans to acquire good education. In that respect, then, the Omindo Commission report comes up to say, let us have education which is meant to train manpower to fill up these positions. True to what, the government embarked on that, and 12 years down the line, by the time the Kashati report is coming up, it was realized that the government had trained Kenyans, Kenyans had filled the jobs, and now there were no more jobs to be filled, and hence the need for a paradigm shift. And that's where I see the rain starting to beat us. Kashati comes up, recommends practical education. The government thinks it's too expensive to implement. Most of those were more or less shelved. We continued with what had been proposed under the Omindo Commission report until McKay came up and said, now we can have education for self-reliance under the 844. We have had it running. We have had very many of us go through it. Now, over 50% of the attendees on this wall may not know anything different from the 844. That is okay. But then again, now we are saying we want to change. Why do we want to change? We want to change probably because we think the 844 is not really serving us as we had intended it to serve us. Remember, it was meant for manpower, for self-reliance. And now we come up with what we are calling the competence-based education. I've had the privilege of supervising research thesis done in the Dakureti area, looking at what ails Kenya in terms of implementation of policies. And the researcher calls it a conundrum. A researcher looks at the political influence, and according to him and his findings, it looks like every time we have a new government, it tries to come up with a new policy on education. But then again, Mr. Waruku did underline the fact that whatever we are doing is underpinned and it's based on some UN conventions and Kenya's commitment to fulfill them. For example, universal free education, universal free and basic education, and so on, and also making it compulsory. So as we change from 844 to CBC, we have the underlying law, that is the Basic Education Act, which provides for free and compulsory basic education. So in our desire and in the law, we want education to be free. We want basic education to be compulsory. Of course, as lawyers, we've had to debate what constitutes basic education. And so far, the understanding is that basic education is where the first 12 years of schooling. So that is meant to be free. But then what do we have and what do we hear coming out of the mouths of our leaders? There's no money to pay for examination fees. There's no money to give to schools. There's no money for capital. There's no money. Parents have to start paying fees and so on. That then speaks to a disconnect between the desired policy and the law. We desire to have everyone go to school. We desire to make education free for everyone. We desire to make basic education compulsory, but we are just not getting it. So, as I was saying, one researcher has tried to come up with some of the challenges that hinder that. He's nailed some of them, but we still need more research to be able to really say that, yes, if we corrected these things, we would be on the right track in terms of connecting our policy to the law and therefore serving Kenyans as we promise them and as they deserve to be served. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to point out one area which is totally lacking. But then before I get to that, let me mention one or two things about CBC or CBE, because that is the new kid on the blocks. We say we want competency-based education. We want this learner to acquire some competencies as they go through the school system, starting from PP1 all the way, hopefully, through the university. What are we having on the ground? Again, here I had the privilege of supervising another thesis done in the Webuye area, which highlighted the challenges on the ground that relate to implementation of the CBC. And here, the researcher points out at factors such as overcrowding in classes. Most of the schools this researcher carried her work on found that there were very many children in class to one teacher, which makes it very difficult for the teacher to even monitor the competences that are supposed to be monitored. At the level of the JSS, the situation out there is that the government was able to post 2 teachers to take care of junior secondary, meaning that a teacher who did subjects like Kiswahili and CRE at university found themselves teaching biology, physics, mathematics. And then we say competency-based education. There we have a challenge, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a challenge that we need to deal with. Then, of course, like Dr. Kikote pointed out something on digital literacy. Digital literacy is part and a very serious component of the CBC. However, most of our schools are not connected to the electricity grid. So charging gadgets that would facilitate digital learning and digital competency is a challenge. Then there's, of course, the question of whether parents can afford those gadgets and if they can afford smartphones to it. So again, we desire that digital literacy be acquired by our learners as part of the competence-based education, but the situation on the ground is different. This researcher, again, of Webuye was able to find that the infrastructure is totally insufficient. One of the pathways foreseen under the CBC is sports and the creative arts, music, and so on. But then go to the schools where it all starts. There are very few qualified music teachers. There are very few qualified sports teachers. The facilities for teaching those subjects are totally lacking. So we are looking at a law, we are looking at a policy, but implementation on the ground is a challenge. Now, let me come to what I had hinted to coming to. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking about recognition of prior learning. This recognition of prior learning is captured in the Kenya National Qualifications Framework Act. And the purpose of the act is to try to equate what people have learned both in school and through experience and see how to relate them in order to promote continuous learning. What am I talking about? Someone may drop out at class 7, go to a village polytechnic, learn carpentry, become such a proficient carpenter that the person can actually produce furniture fit for export and beyond. And the question is, should we hold this person as one who dropped out of school at class 7, or can we help this person to acquire further education? And then according to the Kenya National Qualifications Framework, the competencies of this person can be related to some of the formal learning so that this person is allowed to join the formal system at a level. We have that, we have a policy to that effect, but implementation is a challenge. As we struggle with that, ladies and gentlemen, Australia has done it very well. South Africa is also implementing it. And in fact, there was a hue and cry not too long ago at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, where the School of Business and Management admitted some students to do an MBA who did not have a degree. First, the staff were hesitant. They didn't know how to deal with such students. Some tried to oppose the policy, some tried to work against the admission of the students, but it was argued that it is a national policy to recognize prior learning, and the university had no choice but to implement it. That argument prevailed. And then, of course, now the real test of the pudding, it is said, is usually in the eating. Come to examinations, these candidates actually performed very well on the MBA exams. This is just to illustrate that, yes, the policy on recognition of prior learning is one that can help open up spaces for Kenyans who were, for one reason or the other, were not able to continue the formal way of schooling. My colleagues at the School of Law and at the School of Education have teamed up to do a research on this particular aspect of recognition of prior learning. And what we did is that within the Kenyan system, we were not able to really find people who have been admitted to do a diploma or a degree based on pure recognition of prior learning. However, we were able to find an alternative to that, or what we call an alternative form of admission. So then we tried to compare students admitted to a degree program through the direct entry from school with those admitted through what we call progression, those who went elsewhere to do a diploma and then eventually joined a degree. Our preliminary results show that there's hardly any difference in performance, the final exams between the two groups. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pointing out something here that we have a policy in place, we have a law in place, but we are slow in implementing it. I want to say that, yes, one of the challenges we have in the country in relation to policies and laws is that we come up with this, but then implementation becomes rather difficult, or we try to run away from it. CBC, I have mentioned, and I have mentioned some of the challenges coming from research. I have mentioned other aspects as well, but then there's still need for a lot of research in this whole area of education to be able to tell whether even what we say is working or not. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, let me point out something that is a thorn in the flesh of the government, the parents and students alike, and of course the universities, the university funding model. We had a team that worked out on that university funding model and said, yes, this is going to work for us. Now, it is actually not working for us. So I want to invite members who are on this wall and others who are not on this wall to join us in the Masters of Education in Leadership and Policy, so that together we may investigate all these hurdles, these bottlenecks, these challenges in the area of education, with the hope of coming up with policies that work for us, so that at the end of the day, we can talk of having policies and leading clearly or leading with clarity in terms of policies and the law. Thank you very much, Dr. Munyao. Now, Dr. Munyao has asked me to introduce and invite the Vice Chancellor. The Vice Chancellor of Daystar University is one Professor Peter Lapa Nairo, an educationist to boot. He served as a teacher in many schools, provincial director of education. He served in other capacities as director of education in various institutions. He has risen through the ranks of the university system to become a full professor of education in the field of research methods. And now it is my pleasure to invite Professor Ayiro to take up after me. Professor Ayiro, please come
in. Thank you very much, Professor Moniwe Kesa, sorry, and my Dean School of Education. Allow me to appreciate on the onset previous presenters, namely Wakili Boaz Waruku, the prospective policy analyst Florence Machio, my colleague at Moi University, Dr. George Kegode, in the area of Education Foundation, and of course, Professor Dr. Moniwe Kesa. And I've taken cognizance of the topics that you are covering, and they are all indicating the dynamics and the agility that education is confronted with, not just in Kenya, but the world at large. Secondly, I want to invite all of you and welcome you to this webinar being used by Daystar as a curtain raiser for our MEd program in leadership and policy studies. I think the genesis of this program comes from a deep desire on the part of myself and my colleagues at Daystar to provide an alternative and to truly contribute to the wellness of this country in terms of leadership and policy studies. I hope you are aware that a lot of the issues we are grappling with now in the country, be it the SHA medical scheme, be it the finance bill, be it the funding model for higher education, and even for basic education, all these things relate to policy and leadership. And so you should see the nexus or the connection between leadership and policy formulation, policy implementation, and policy evaluation. And that is the essence of this course that we are offering. I'm very proud of the program because it has assumed a national character. The first cohort, we had just about 55 students whom we hope to graduate in the promised time of under 24 months. This November, we hope to get at least 45 crossing the line to graduate out of a class of 55. The second cohort had 119 thereabouts, and we have finished coursework, and we have started proposal development, and we are moving with them in a cohort fashion. And then, of course, the third cohort, I'm getting very good indications. As I speak today, the latest, I get data every day. I think we are at around 108 students who are coming to Daystar. Now, that should tell you the traction this program is attaining nationally. So I want to thank Boaz for your topic. I think it was, I hope I got it right, driving inclusive and equitable change in education. Florence Macho, integrating leadership and policy studies. Dr. Kegode, the future of education, a policy and practice, a policy and practice deep dive. And Prof has been trying to aggregate all these ideas in leadership with clarity, education policy, and law. So I've been given a topic. I wasn't asked what I wanted to say. I've seen they've given me 2 parts of the program. I'll combine them so that when I finish, we go into discussion. But they have asked me to handle a very interesting topic. I kept on asking myself, what exactly do these people want from me? So if I don't quite get where they want me to go, you'll understand they never consulted me. But because they know I'm a vice chancellor, so I cannot say no. When Martin says jump, I jump, and so on. What I don't know, Martin, are we seeing my slides?
Yes, very clearly. If you
Okay,
can,
very good. So yeah, it's okay. So I think allow me to dive, and I'm not going to give. I think my colleagues have been too serious, and I've been wondering, how will I make it? These guys are too serious. They must have prepared extensively. Dr. Kegode, Professor Wekesa, and my able students, you must have prepared a lot. I'm just in a retreat in Naivasha with the Board of Trustees and Council of Daystar. So I have not had much to think through, but these are the ideas I want to throw at you. The topic they gave me is an agile leader fostering innovation in education. And in Kenya, I want to question, what do we mean by an agile leader? Because I can see the reasoning. Education today is very volatile. It is uncertain. It is complex. And it sits in a sphere of ambiguity, VUCA. So, but then Professor Noah Wekesa and the others, I get puzzled as an educationist when I don't see just appreciation of the fact that education is facing a lot of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity by the people manning the sector in education in this country. Because this is complex. Really, you must have been into the mix of teaching, into the mix of running schools, if you're going to navigate. So I always pray for my CS and even the peers that they really need God's goodness, because they're dealing with an area. Everybody thinks that education is very easy. anybody can teach, anybody can run a school, anybody can run a ministry. It isn't that. And perhaps that's why we are in this conundrum that we are in today. The fact is that traditional leadership is insufficient. You cannot, and I want to emphasize this, you cannot sit in a ministry today and cause leadership because you have the instruments of the office. No. There's something bigger there. You need to be a practitioner so that you can win the respect and the support of your peers. So I pray that the people who are supporting our leaders in education truly give them the support, because it is a humongous task that they face today. Now, that's the first thing I wanted to deal with. The other one is you have to be agile, and I sympathize even with the school heads who are on this call. When I was a principal in Lubino Boys, I was a principal in Kegoye, my first starting school. I was a principal Sunshine School on Nangata Road. I didn't have to be agile. Things were orderly, grants were coming on time, parents were paying fees, and it was enjoyable. Today, a principal has literally got to be agile to escape being hanged by students, because he needs to have agile leadership to enable them adapt, innovate, and thrive in a very, very difficult environment. But this is what Scripture tells us. And Martin, I hope the screen is still on. Is it still on?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And this is what Scripture tells us, that if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. I think the current leaders, particularly principals, not just of high schools, but even primary schools and technical training institutes and universities, really need the wisdom, because it is a very, very precarious time they are going through. Now, who is an agile leader? I think an agile leader is one who embraces change as an opportunity, empowers at university faculty, at high school teachers, students and staff, listens and adapts via feedback loops. So you must be a listener, and you must be adaptable, and you must be relational. And you must be somebody who models humility and courage. Ladies and gentlemen, today's leadership, the instruments of your office, the law of suspension, interdiction, or even termination, would not get you to get the results you want or to build an institution. I keep telling people I was in school leadership for a long time. I'm at the university, and I have never, and this is on record, I have never written or caused interdiction of even a single teacher for the last 30 years. And what model of leadership do I then adapt? A relational model? I cherish putting on the apron of humility. It is not a weakness, it is a strength. And then have the courage to move the institution forward. Now, scripture says this: be shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, watching over them, not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be, not pursuing dishonest gain, corruption, but eager to serve, not lording it over those entrusted to you. I am the principal. Keep on reminding people that you are the principal of the school, but being examples to the flock. 1 Peter 5:2-3 NIV. I am giving you some of the nuggets that will allow greater agility for you to navigate the difficult terrain of leadership today in the Republic of Kenya. So if there's nothing you'll hear from me, and those of you who will be in my classes for leadership and policy and also for research methods, humility and courage. And just learn you can never do it alone. So be a good shepherd. And that people will support you. People will pray for you if you exercise humility and compassion. Now, why agile leadership in education? Why? Because there is rapid technological shifts. Those of you who are coming to Daystar, Daystar has the courage and is going to establish what is called a spatial AI center, where we will use it to help us improve not just our pedagogies, but also the instruction in the School of Nursing, School of Law, School of Communication. And we will be able to, our students will be trained to, particularly at master's and PhD level, to give and produce prototypes. So if you're looking for a model of leadership, you will challenge the spatial AI setup to give you models. And it doesn't give you by copying and pasting or just downloading. No, it gives you those models based on your reasoning and what you are asking of them. So we have the courage, and we won a very huge grant because I'm on the AI consortium, the Global AI Consortium. I represent Africa. We are going to set this up, and we wanted to give us a competitive advantage, so that we are not just scratching AI at the surface, we are getting into it, and we are able to deepen our understanding, and we are able to find solutions that have not been found. Let me give you an example. One of the things I want to engage with a team of my master's and PhD students is, why is the performance of mathematics in Kenya poor? And I don't want the usual answers. Teachers are not trained, there are not enough books, there are not what. AI will take us into the caves of the instruction of mathematics and will give us optional pedagogies that we can use, particularly in primary and high schools, to give a solution to this horrible national statistic on the performance of mathematics. At Daystar, we believe in digital platforms. everywhere on campus, whether it is in Nairobi or Athi River. There is access internet, but also wherever you are in the Republic or in the world, you will be able to access the library being a registered student of Daystar, and you can get all the support wherever you are, whether you are in Turkana or you are in Ethiopia or you are in Swaziland, you have access. So we have very robust digital platforms. That's part of the agility. We want to change learner expectations. There's one of you who I mentored when she was in high school, and she called me and said she really would like to come to Daystar. So I told her, go and check on the website. Why don't you enroll into the master's program? She went. And after about 10, 15 minutes, she wrote back and said, Daystar is too expensive. You know, and then I asked myself, is Daystar expensive? This particular master's program, you have a scholarship worth 40% of the total fees. But what is different is that we are allowing you to have different expectations as a master student. You have listened to Boaz, you have listened to Florence. Why wouldn't you doubt? If I told you they had PhDs, you would say that yes, they have. They don't. They are still working on that. That's what we are saying, changing learner expectations and challenging you to be the best. So I told her to apply. Of course, now she's realizing it isn't as expensive, but you want to go to a university where lecturers don't appear in class, where you take 3 years to do a master's or 4 years to do a master's degree, where even when you finish that master's, you yourself, you know, nothing has changed in your intellectual capacity and your exposure as a person. We are very determined to exhibit global competitiveness that demand innovation in what we do. So we will deliberately have you relate with all the universities that we relate with across the world, some of the best universities in the world. And this is our intention. This is what agile leadership is all about. And then, of course, as my colleagues have said, there are many complex policy and funding landscapes, and we must find solutions to them as we move forward. The running word in Daystar is innovation. That's why we don't just have a directorate of research, but we have a directorate of research in Daystar, innovation, entrepreneurship, and commercialization. And I want you to note that. Why are we doing that? Because we want to be in the 21st century. On Saturday, 7 vice chancellors from what are called entrepreneurial universities, we are going with the PS for science and technology to Denmark to go and look at the Danish Technical University. They have what they call Sky Labs. They have spatial centers. We want to look at them and we want to challenge ourselves to make sure that our universities also look like them and we are able to compete. So we are going to have safe spaces. We are also going to have with curriculum. When I tell people at the first cohort, I was the first supervisor, and I supervised all those 50 students up to chapter 3, they don't understand. Today, I have 119 students in the cohort, second cohort, and I'm their first supervisor. And they're saying, but how do you see, how do you manage to go through all those things? Is that possible? Because they're not innovative. They don't embrace technology. So if you're going to sit in the 21st century, you're busy reading a hard copy of a proposal, chapter 1, and spending 3 hours looking at the introduction, you can't compete. Go on the net and look at what Harvard is doing now. Harvard is able to test and grade their students in a record 36 hours. That's where the world is going, and that's where we want to go as Daystar. So sometimes when you look at a cost in a university, think twice. It might look affordable, but the product you get cannot work with you in the 21st century. We are leveraging partnerships. We are very close to Kenya. Kenya is the Kenya National Agency, Innovation Agency. And in fact, the trip we're going to Denmark, it is actually under the auspices of Kenya. In that Kenya, we have the Universities Forum Network, and currently, excuse me, I'm the chair, the vice chair. And really, I hope you're coming to Daystar to shift your mindset, to shift how you respond to situations. And this we shall do in detail when we get you into our classes. So I just want to give you some idea of what this innovation, entrepreneurship, and commercialization is all about. A lot of our programs are going to be venture-based learning integrated into your curriculum. So if you are doing a course in policy studies, we want to make sure that we train you to be almost a policy analyst. And you can venture into consultancy, and that you can start earning money because you have earned a worthy master's degree from Daystar University. This is our promise, and this is my promise, that we intend to be different. We are very committed to research, to commercialization. So I would like most of you, we should teach you research methods and policy studies so that you can convert those things into consultancies that will earn you the money. We want you to produce prototypes on how to improve the teaching of mathematics in Kenya, or enhance the mastery of language, English or Kiswahili language, in high school in the Republic of Kenya. And we at Daystar, we shall encourage all of you to participate in matters innovation. And we hope that this level of governance will go through beyond our senates and even our councils as a university. So what are the attributes of agile education leaders? You have seen what I'm talking about. The things that attract us at Daystar are not things that attract traditional leaders. So there is visionary. You inspire future direction. By the way, giving a commitment to get my master's students to graduate in 24 months is very visionary. And we are not just making statements. You'll work very hard, but you'll graduate on time. A leader who is agile is flexible. You adjust strategies quickly. Like now, there is spatial AI where you have reality and into innovative spaces. You are collaborative. So we are going to build diverse alliances, as you see when you get to Daystar, particularly faculty and the management. We take on resilience as something that sustains our momentum. So when you say, I'm going to look at the chapter 1s of 119 students, you will do it. So you must be resilient. Professor Noah Moni Wekesa has just moved from School of Law to School of Education. That is versatility. And we are looking for certain traits for him to carry into the School of Education. And then virtue-based. And this one I want to emphasize. The difference between Daystar, we go beyond values and we aspire to attain golden standards of virtue in what we do. So we are deeply rooted in Christian values. I have my PhD class, they're about 90 with the who is who in Kenya, but we have virtues. And we start our classes with devotion, and unashamedly, we cherish that. And I was somewhere, and one of the leading parliamentarians is in my class for the PhD, and she said, you know, the most beautiful thing about being in Daystar is that you start classes with devotion, and then the learning is serious. So the scripture tells us that where there's no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. Proverbs 29:18. In conclusion, agile leaders transform systems. And so you are coming into a university that is transformative. We are going into AI, spatial AI spaces for your learning. We are going to have hubs of innovation. And I would like my master's students and even my PhD students and even my undergraduate students to be part of this crusade. And that leaders, the people who come out of this MEd in leadership, must go out and be catalysts of societal change. We must change. We cannot keep lamenting about Kenya. We can offer alternatives, and God will see, and God will place you accordingly. So the scripture here is that, see, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. So we are very convinced that we can be different. And our graduate school has moved from about 500 students, and now we are about 1,500 and something PhD and master students. So we want you to join us, but just know that this is a huge experiment. This is not an ordinary master's program. You're coming into a space that is ambitious, that is courageous, that is full of virtue, but carries the apron of humility when dealing with our students. In Daystar, we talk about design for delight. So everything we do, I was asked to talk to you today. I've had to think through, what do I want to pass through? Because anything I pass through must delight my students, must delight my clients. And you notice this when we start the classes. So I want to stop there. I hope I have stirred up some thinking. I have made you realize that this is Daystar. It isn't any other university. And we are not limited in what we want to do because we know that gold and silver are not ours, but God's. So that's the first part, Martin. Second part, I want just to take them. I've talked a lot about our program and our approach, and that what does agility mean? And it's not us being agile only. My students must also strive to be agile and innovative. So I want to let them know that the central piece in this program, is research methods. Yeah. In fact, that's why you come for masters. You come for masters to deepen your skills in research methods. So we take research methods and statistics very seriously. And I just want to give you a peep, 5 minutes, then I'll leave for comments and discussion. Let me share this with you. So when you come to Daystar, one thing you notice, are we there, Martin? Are we come?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
When you come to Daystar, because of technology, we are able to do all kinds of things, and we can develop mind maps in minutes, in seconds, and then we can put them in 3 dimensions for better understanding. We can also go to AI and ask AI, how best do we articulate a research design that will be used in developing policies that will cause change or impact in society. That's where we are now. So this is one of the critical courses that you will do, research methods. And we have wonderful faculty now. In fact, recently we hired 2 professors whose work is only to teach research methods. So I teach research methods, and now I have 2 other professors. But all these other professors, Professor Moni Wekesa teaches research methods. We have a whole cluster of research methods instructors. But this is how we look at research methods at Daystar. First of all, when you talk of research methods, and I'm just giving you a glimpse, we run to the research design. And the research design tells us the 3 types: mixed methods, qualitative, quantitative. And we'll go into details. Then after the research design, we run, and within the research design, there will be, for example, sampling techniques. So you know them: purposive, stratified, convenience, random sampling techniques. We are also very sensitive that in research, you must give us research that is true and can be repeated. So we dwell a lot with validity and reliability, both for qualitative and quantitative studies. Once you have done sampling, you then go into data collection, and we look at the various ways of collecting data. After that, we come and do data analysis, either qualitatively through thematic analysis or quantitatively through statistical analysis and content analysis. What am I saying? We don't just open books and say, chapter 1, let us read. No. We diligently, and this is for research, and it will be done in every other course that you will do, so that we open up your mind to a new experience in learning in a university. As Florence mentioned, it is not easy. It will be very difficult, very demanding. But if you are diligent and if you are focused, Daystar will give you a master's that will be worthy of who you are. And you are aware, we are just about to start a PhD in administration and policy studies. That will be another very attractive program that goes across all the sectors. So after you finish this master's, we expect that 3/4 of you will get into the PhD in administration and policy studies. Martin, I want to stop there. This is just a curtain raiser. And I am very, very happy those of you who will make a decision to join us. And our commitment is that we'll lift you to another level of thinking and desire to excel. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. You have delivered more than we ordered for.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
I hope so.
Yeah, you're right on spot. And wow, thank you. Thank you once again, as usual. Never disappoints. Those who are joining us, this is the finesse. Just a taste of the finesse in our classrooms. Professor Laban Ayiro, our professor, our VC himself, teaches in classes. Yes, as you've seen, teaches research methods in your classes. And so what else are you waiting for? Click on that link and submit your application, and we'll begin processing it. Speaking about agile leadership, yes, VC has talked about embracing change as an opportunity, empowers faculty, students, and staff, listens and adapts via feedback loops, models humility and courage. But what really got into me is the very end of the attributes of the agile educational leader. That one is visionary, flexible, collaborative, resilient, and virtual-based. Ladies and gentlemen, that is agile leadership in demonstration. Now come to Daystar and see it yourself in your learning experience. I'd like to open this opportunity for feedback. I wish that you can react and comment on the 5 speeches that you've had. And so I want to open up the next 8 to 10 minutes for that, so that I can let Dr. Caroline Ayuya move a vote of thanks and close for us with a word of prayer. And so let me see by show of hands, and I'll go by the order of the hands that will be put up. When you get a chance, just unmute your mic and very briefly make your comment or ask a question. If it's a question directed to a particular speaker, and I'll be taking notes.
Yeah, Martin, I think the students should, I'm really mesmerized at the students who are joining this program. We have Kenya, United Arab Emirates, China, Congo, Cuba, England, Ethiopia, Kuwait, Malawi, Mongolia, Seychelles, South Africa, Switzerland, Uganda, USA, and Uzbekistan. In this program, what does that say? God is saying something. So we will up our game. I know last time we had about almost 20 again nationalities. So this is an international program. And it just tells us, it just motivates us to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, VC. And I see some questions on the chat segment as I wait for hands to go up. Hello, a question on education management in our institutions across the board. Should it be strictly on educationists, or is it still tenable to entrust colleagues from other professions after undergoing short course policy and short courses on policy and leadership training? Because I think it requires a strong foundation to head this education institution, as much as pedagogical skills are really, I'm not quite sure what that question is aiming at, but it's saying that, oh, okay. Oh, that's a long one. Yeah, but that's a question by Idris. Idris, if you can put up your hand, you can, perhaps you can clarify your question so that I'm not misrepresenting you. Okay, Vincent Wekesa says, my daughter is going into bachelor's degree in administration and policy studies Happy to hear it mentioned by Professor Iro. She will come for postgraduate studies at Daystar. So Mary Changwala, a question too. Professor Laban has mentioned something on mathematics performance. Kindly, anyone who got the message to repeat it, the information passed me. Okay.
Yeah. I think a lot of these questions, they are anticipatory.
Yeah.
And I remember the two presenters, Boaz and Florence, none of them are in education. In fact, Boaz is a lawyer. This is about policy studies. Policy studies is a sector-oriented learning. So it doesn't matter whether you're in education or health or military, policy studies. And leadership is universal when you come to think about it. And in our teaching, we are very deliberate not to sit only in the space of education. We give examples across in business, in psychology, to reinforce the two major areas of engagement, policy and leadership. I've had people say, mention something about maths. Maths is a national tragedy. I've wondered why we don't call it as a disaster. And Kenyan kids are bright kids. Why aren't they doing well in maths? So we go to and don't tell us there are not enough books. When we were in class ourselves, it's only the teacher who had a book. Yeah. So don't tell us those. There's something that has to be reconfigured, either in the mindset, but also the pedagogy of instruction of basic arithmetic is wrong. So our children walk like that. You saw the other day, it showed a very negative image of our country when we are trying to quietly not examine maths. That spoke volumes. Because which life would you be in where you don't measure and count? Think. And in any case, what is maths supposed to do? Maths is supposed to open up your mind in terms of thinking in 3 dimensions, in terms of carrying on figures. It sharpens the mind. So when we are saying we don't have to have maths as an examinable subject, it spoke a lot about our national conscience as a people. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Prof, for responding to that. Another question from Felix. When one graduates with Masters of Education Leadership and Policy Studies, which professional bodies can he or she join?
Everybody, every profession, even medical doctors will benefit from this course. And when they start writing their thesis, they'll write their thesis in their areas of specialization, using the principles of leadership and policy studies that they'll have gained. Yeah. But as we move to PhD now, you see it will now be labeled administration and policy studies. So it becomes universal. And I'm sure it's going to be a big scramble for that program. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Vincent asking, what does ODEL stand for? It stands for Open, Distance, and E-Learning. This is a directorate at Daystar University that will help deliver some of these programs, especially the fully online ones or blended ones, to you at your convenience from wherever you are. Thank you. So for the qualifications for the master's programs, I think it's in the application. Mishek, if you can resend the application again on the link. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless we have any comments, one, people speaking up, but they're all on the chat. Huh?
Yes.
By the way, who is the majority of your audience? I can see a lot of my students, some of my students are here. I think they're just warming up for the defense. Huh?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, a little nervous, yeah, but it's understood. Yeah.
Warming up for the defense.
Do you have any of the new students who are applying?
Yes, we had quite a number.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had quite a number. We still have some numbers remaining on the call. Yeah.
Okay.
I see two hands, Dr. Adoli and Eric Owino. And perhaps after responding to those questions or comments, I'll let Dr. Ayuya move a vote of thanks and close with a prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. And mine is not a question per se, but also an inspiration from this presentation this evening. I want to appreciate the presenters, Professor Moni, Professor Airo, and all those that presentation. You alluded to the ominous problem that we always have with the political economy in the education system in Kenya. And if you go through those changes in the curriculums over the regimes, and almost like we are seeing this happening again with the new regimes coming in, almost asking, are we going to sustain what is happening with the CBE? But since this program, this Masters in Leadership and Policy program at Deisto University has almost giving us hope in the sense of policy analysis and formulation. Probably this is just a call that we could be thinking on how to advise, to make policy advice to the education sector, the government, especially when we see things going wrong in the education sector. And I've heard the concern of Professor Airo in terms of mathematics. I've heard the concern of where we are going with CBE. And probably these are the policymakers, the leaders that need to give direction or to give suggestion in that area of policy. Just my thinking.
Thank you, Dr. Adoli. Those are valid inputs. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Martin, I can see some participants with hands raised. Are you able to pick them out?
Eric Owino?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm really inspired. Having been a master's student, and at times you take 5 years to complete, and I'm so much overwhelmed with the presentation of Professor Airo about how much time it takes. Now, you've mentioned about a PhD program in administration. I don't know when will this start and what will be the prerequisite in that particular aspect, because I'm looking forward to it. Or do I need to, or is there a responsible person that we can chat with and can get more guidance on it? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm sure my colleagues will pick that up, but this is scheduled for January 2026. This will require masters across disciplines. So if you have a master's in law or a master's in policy studies or a master's in education or a master's in psychology, across disciplines, you need to learn administration and policy. By the way, and I want people to get the essence of this. What we are grappling with today rotates around administration and policy. If you don't get it right, the country won't go anywhere. I visited Mauritius for a conference about 3 weeks ago. It's a small little country, but the exchange rate, the rupee in Mauritius, is 42 to the dollar. Our shilling is 100 and something. Mauritius, it's a very small little country. They have, let me give you this statistic. They have 1.4 million people and they have 900,000 cars. I have never seen the amount of sugarcane that is being grown in Mauritius. Not the kind of things we are doing of scattered pieces of sugarcane. in dry fields, continuous sugarcane. You drive for 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers, you're just seeing cane, and it is mechanized. So this is all about administration and policy. And when the president came to address our conference, he had one chase car and 2 bodyguards. And we sat with him, he finished the address, we went to have coffee, because he was a law professor in the University of Mauritius, and he's now the president. There are no heirs, there's nothing. But they have said no to corruption. That is administration. So we are hoping, getting into the, it doesn't matter what career you have. But if the infrastructure, if the legal framework, if the ambience doesn't allow you to work, you never become what God intended you to become. So that's what we need to reconfigure. These days I'm surprised. Actually, I get very surprised when I hear how appointments are done by your employer. The teachers who are on this call, I get surprised. Where did his seniority go? Where did the merit go? Those kind of things, because a hero is a lawyer. Then when he goes to a place, everybody then becomes a lawyer and everywhere. That's what we're talking about. Policy. Why are we struggling with devolution? CDF, everybody wants to do their thing. Why are we doing that? Why are we sending money to MPs to give for fees when we know that the school is the unit of analysis? The school will, in fact, protect the vulnerable children because they know them. Why? And why would a hero's grandchild be given capitation? Why don't we have a voucher system so that the vulnerable have enough resources to study? But, we want to have many books going to schools, oversupply of books, tender issues, and all those things. That is under administration and policy studies. So the people are asking, will it be a useful, and then you're going to do a lot of research. By the way, this course you are taking, Masters in Research in Leadership and Policy Studies. You do research as a subject, but policy studies is all research. You'll find it is like doing a proposal again and implementing that what you want to achieve in an area. Yeah, sorry, Martin, I'm taking too much of your time. Now I've stopped talking. Thank you.
Perfectly okay. Thank you very much, VC. And Eric Owino, I've sent you my cell phone number. Let's talk. Paul Dalizu.
Yes, thanks a lot for that opportunity. My question goes to Prof. Don't you have a particular prototype, for instance, for Kenyan University, especially if you are a PhD student, you've collected data. Why are we having a delay in response maybe to students? In the context whereby some of them usually say it's the Q policies, that allow people to drag. So averagely in Kenya, to get a PhD in a public university may be around 7 years, But when you really critically look at it, and with your idea about Harvard being able to review your document within 6 hours, why are we having a challenge with that? Can we have a prototype, or what would be your thoughts? Maybe to recommend to CUE, because I know so abroad they usually charge people if a student is delayed in terms of their graduation, they should pay them, But here it's used as a tool by some of the faculty to disenfranchise the students. What do you think?
Okay. One, if you are taking that long, it means you have not embraced technology. Simple. you are in another era. 2, your value system. That's why I told you, for us, we design for delight. For us, it is morally wrong for somebody to have invested money in your university and then they drop out. So that's about, it's not just about values, it's about virtues, where you know, what does God want me out of this? So there are those fundamentals that we have lost, and who cares? But if you are using technology, if you are IT savvy, like I am now, why should I stay with your work? My feedback is almost instant. I have to know how I'm going to use. I have subscribed to very expensive software, which then assists me in looking at your topic and asking it to give me the various possible ways of putting that topic and bringing out the variables. So even before I go to the problem statement, I know the variables I'm going to deal with, and I can help you with your objectives and research questions and the hypothesis. Very quickly, I have a university that is IT savvy, so I can get into the databases and get all the references that you will need for your literature review chapter 2, and I give you and you go and read. So, you know, it's all about, have you embraced technology and innovation? But also, more importantly, what is your value system like? So prototype doesn't matter. Don't we have the Constitution of 2010 in this country? Ama hakuna? Siko. You remember how we danced when Kibaki was showing us the Constitution? You can have prototypes, but if there are no value systems around it, it won't breathe. Yeah, Martin, I think we better close the session. It's already, time is part of our culture.
Thank you, VC, and thank you, other speakers. But let me let Dr. Caroline Ayuya do that work of appreciating our speakers, and then everyone else who's come to this webinar. My name is Martin. I was your host today. Thank you, Dr. Ayuya.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Martin Munyao, for this opportunity. Just want to give a vote of thanks. And as I give a vote of thanks, just first of all, just to look at that, someone has asked a very important question regarding the book that I was spotlighting. There are many nationalities in our country, in our classes, and they're finding out how they're going to get this book, especially those who are now joining us, this and all over the country. Just to say a little bit of this book, this is a course book for research. People have been used to different books. I don't want to mention some of the publishers, the authors, but now we have this is the newest research book in the country by one of the greatest researchers and a professor of research methods and statistics. And therefore, the 2024 current book is this book. Otherwise, we've been quoting 2026, 2012, but now we have this current book, which will be used in our coursework. For those who already have seen, a majority of the actually attendees are cohort 3. Please, you can pay on this pay bill number, and then you can call Magdalene, who is the research protocol and research officer for the Vice Chancellor, on 0720876448 for pickup. Those who are out of the country, we've been able to ship for you. All we need to do is just get us your shipping address, and then the cost of shipping will be on you. Alternatively, if you have any person who can pick on your behalf when they are visiting our country, we have people all the way from Muscat, Oman, Uzbekistan, we have Kuwait and all over. We have had no challenges shipping to you. We can ship to you this particular book. If you're out of the country, if you are within the country, just give your address. It's almost like 300 shillings to ship for you, or 150 depending on your destination. We will ship. Magdalene is a very, very proactive and responsive research officer for the Vice Chancellor. And if you have any challenges, I'm available to support you wherever I am. I am in the US right now, but I do all this without having any particular challenge. So that is the number, and that is the book. So I want to take this opportunity to be able to thank the Vice Chancellor, Professor Leben Ayiro. I want to thank Professor Dr. Moni Wekesa. I want to thank Dr. Kegode George. I want to thank Boaz, our law is an advocate of the High Court, and a student who is graduating this year, and student number 1 to do his defense, final defense in our next coming defense. I want to thank Florence, who wants to be the student on the last student to present the defense thesis this semester. We want to thank you, all of you, and the organizers, first of all, the facilitators of this particular webinar. What a good, rich knowledge we've been able to receive from you. And I think we've been able to convince 1 or 2 why this is very important. Growing up new leadership cartel of people, because currently we have had challenges in our leadership and policy. We are hoping that this program is going to change, because we have had people going for trainings and everything, but we see corruption, we see policies that are not working, implemented. So we are hoping this crop of graduates from this particular program all over the world are going to change, particularly in Kenya. Those who will be in Kenya, we hope that you're going to change this country and will be the people we are looking for. Remember, this is a short program of only within 18 months with 10 months of intensive work. And as you finish your thesis, you're now graduating towards the end of the year. We are hoping that you will read about us and tell everybody about us and encourage everybody to come through after being convinced that this webinar has been of great importance to you today. The organizers, the Directorate and the School of Education, thank you so much, because it wouldn't be this without you bringing us. And of course, we have had many professors from different universities. I've seen some from Maseno, University of Moi University was having quite a number of you. We appreciate for joining us here. And of course, we have also had Egerton joining us. We thank you so much. And Daystar faculty who have joined us then to be part of this kind of webinar. This webinar was not just for education, but it was also for knowledge acquisition and change in attitude, and get something out of this webinar. We hope that this is going to impact you as a person, but also encourage people to join this probably the lowest paid master's program in the whole country, that it has also taken in the shortest time for the first time in the whole country, and also the master's program that has every leadership in Daystar, and of course global professors and faculty teaching this particular program, of course with our Professor Lebana Euro teaching research and also educational policy as a course. We hope that you're going to let others come in, and we are available to support you. For cohort 3, we've engaged a lot. Cohort 2, congratulations on finishing your program. Cohort 1, we can't wait to cheer you with something very special as the Dean, Professor Dr. Moni Wekesa, presents your name for the degrees. I want to thank you, all of you, and I hope that this will impact you. And I would like to pray as we close this session. Shall we pray? Father, we thank you this evening for being so gracious to us, for this webinar that has been very successful. We give you glory and honor. We thank you for the organizers. We thank you for the faculty. We thank you for the Vice Chancellor. We thank you for the participants and students who are already joining us or who have been part of this program. Lord, without this, it would have not been possible, but we know your hand and your favor was in it. And therefore, we pray that this will impact, not just for the students to join, but also knowledge acquisition, attitude change, and being the part of the leadership and policymakers of this country and world that we're going to impact. Thank you for the nationalities that have joined us. People would ask, why are they moving from USA? 3 students to join Daystar program. Why an England professor can join this program? It is the impact this program has in this world. And therefore, we pray that we will be your instruments of change to the world and our country as Kenya as well. And we pray that this is going to be a blessing to us. May you give us different time blessings and grace and favor. And we come to pray for our leader, our Vice Chancellor leading this university on his shoulder, that you will hold for him and lighten every burden or every challenge or everything that the Daystar University would like you to carry it for him as you take it over and lead us through all this session. Bless us and grant us your favor. In Jesus' name we do believe and pray. Amen. Thank you so much. And
Amen.
Lovely time.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining. God bless you all.
Good night.
Hi, Dr. Yuya.
Oh, nice to see everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully we see you again in the class, but it's such a great people. Vincent, Dana, Mike, everybody. When the VC has left, you can dance a little and do some things like this, and now you have the freedom. Hi, everybody. Seeing you again. Love you all. Love you all.
Good night.
All right, bye.
Good night.